بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So alhamdulillah, we're back, new year. So inshallah we're going to be moving ahead, not finishing off, just moving ahead at the beginning of our Wusta inshallah. Okay? And a good break, so hopefully we're nice and fresh to continue. Okay? So now what we're doing here is we are discussing the first maqsid. In the first maqsid, we're discussing the amil. So the first, and this maqsid awwal had three babs. Al-bab al-awwal is a fa'il. Al-bab al-thani is a harf, meaning those verbs that govern within the sama'i, the qiyasi, and then the sama'i we had the af'alu ta'ajjub, af'alu muqaraba, naqis, all of those within all of those. Now we're doing the harf. However, in harf, when we done sughra, all we said was that there are some particles that are amil. But what we have to remember that some of the huruf are ghayr amil. Some of the huruf are ghayr amil, they don't do amal. So because all of the fa'il are amil, we don't discuss fa'il amil, fa'il ghayr amil, they're all amil, so we don't have a category. But because some huruf are amil, some of them cause changes to the particles or words after them, and some don't. That's why you have amil and ghayr amil. You have two categories. So we'll have two sections in this. So in a fa'il, we just have all the fa'ils listed as one category, because all of them do amal, they're all amil. And when we have the harf, all harf don't govern. You understand? For example, ma daraba, he did not hit. So ma doesn't cause any change. So ma is ghayr amil. But lan causes a change. That's a harf. So we have two categories of these. And in the babu thalis is going to be the ism amil. Al-babu thalis al-ism. I forgot the word ism. Al-ism. Al-ism. And here we have amil and ghayr amil as well. In fa'il, they were all amil. There was no ghayr amil. That didn't exist. So we never made this categorization. There's no point. Everybody following me? So again, this is a recap of the mind map of the maqsid al-awwal. So the maqsid al-awwal is to do with the amil, the governing particles. Maqsid al-thani to do with the ma'mul. So in the governing words, you have fa'il that governs, harf that governs, the ism that governs. And in fa'il, we've covered all of this. This has been covered already. We're no longer going to go back to this. In Babu Thani, in the harf, we're going to cover those that govern and those that don't govern. Understood? Everybody following? Any questions? Okay. So let's read the text moving ahead. So Al-Babu Thani fil harf. The second bab regarding harf. وَفِيهِ فَصْلان. There are two separations. Again, fasl, bab, they're all categorizations. وَفِيهِ فَصْلان. There are two categories. Al-fasl al-awwal fil harf al-amil. The first is regarding the harf amil, meaning those that govern. And the second is going to be what? The ones that don't govern. We'll do that later on. Okay? So we have al-babu thani al-harf. We have the amil. We're going to do those first. And then later on, a few pages down, we're going to do the ghayr amil. Understood? So we have on page 18, we have the harf amil, yes? Correct? And if you go to fasl thani is going to start on page, it starts quite late, on page 30, page 37. So we're going to have about 20 pages of harf amil. Harf amil is quite important. They're all important, but it's quite a long detail. Understood? Okay. Okay. So moving on. So al-fasl al-awwal fil harf al-amil wa huwa naw'an. There are two types. So the particles that govern, there are two types. Hurufun ta'malu fil ismi. Meaning, these huruf govern the particles that come after, not the particles, they affect the noun that comes after them. For example, can you give an example of a particle that governs a noun that comes after it? Inna, anna, layta. What else? Ba, harfun jar, ba, fi, min. So all of these are haruf or huruf. They govern a noun. They cause a noun to change. Understood? Okay, so we have al-babu thani al-harf. Then we have the amil and we have the ghayr amil. In the amil, you have two types of amil. Those that govern the nouns, and those that govern the verbs. What governs a verb, for example? Lan, lam, the in shartiya. And some of these were discussed already in the surah. Everyone following? And then we have the ghayr amil. Okay? Okay. Now we have An-Nahw al-awwal. So hurufun ta'malu fil ismi. So the ones that govern and affect other nouns. هي أربعة أقسام. There are 4 types. What are the 4 types again? So look, we go back over it again. So تعمل في الاسم تجر اسما واحدا. Those particles that cause one noun after them to become what? To become majroor. For example, who can think of an example of one word that causes one particle that causes the ism after to become majroor? The huruf and jar, fi, min, all of these. The second one is yansibu isman wahidan. Which one is this? What causes one noun to become mansub? Very good, illa. After that, what causes hurufun tansibul isma wa tarfa'ul khabara? Makes the ism mansub and the khabar marfu'. Inna wa akhawataha, for example. And after that, the 4th type is opposite. Tarfa'ul isma wa tansibul khabara. Ism is marfu' and the khabar is mansub. What is this? Kana is a verb. We're talking about harf amil. Yeah, ma and la, which resemble laysa. Okay, and this overview has already been covered in the sughra. Okay, and then we'll have those that govern a verb later on. So, النوع الأول حروف تعمل في الاسم. The first type are the huruf which govern a noun. وهي أربعة أقسام, and there are 4 types. القسم الأول حروف تجر اسما واحدا. The first one, مبتدأ, منعوت, not, are those particles which give jar to one ism. You don't have to translate jar because jar is like a terminology, so which make one ism majroor. وتسمى, the zameen here is referring back to the huruf. These huruf are called حروف الجر. These huruf are called what? حروف الجر. وهي ثلاثة أدرب. And these huruf al-jar are of 3 types. So this is something new now, because in Sughra, we just learned the huruf al-jarra and that's it. We didn't go into any details regarding how many types of huruf al-jar there were. We had a list of, how many huruf al-jarra we listed there? We listed how many? We listed 13. That's it. We didn't have categories. Now we're going to say, well, these huruf al-jarra are 13, but 13 are for one type. Is actually, we can categorize the huruf al-jarra into 3 types. الضرب الأول حرف الجر الأصلي. The first one is what? The حرف الجر أصلي. This is what we covered in the Sughra. And Asli is what we call a standard حرف الجر. The حروف الجر الأصلي, the standard حروف الجر. Okay, so this is mentioned what? So again, if you look at this, this is mentioned on page 18, right? And so we get an idea. The second type, or the third type, is mentioned on which page? The third type is mentioned on page 26. Okay? This is called Harful Jar Zaid. A Harful Jar is Zaid. You can say here, extra, not a good translation, but I'll explain all that later on. So you have the Asal, the normal standard Harfun Jar, we'll discuss that throughout. Then the third type is Harfun Jar Zaid. And what's the second type? The second type is what we call here Shabihun Bizaid. So we discuss this later on, but it's brought there so that you get an idea, or you have a mental map of what's going on. This is on now page 25. So there are 3 types. What are the 3 types? Repeat after me the 3 types. I'll explain all the meanings at their time. One is Harfun Jar al-Asli. One is Harfun Jar al-Zaid. One is Harfun Jar al-Shabih. Shabih means resembling. What does Shabih means? Resembling. We say Asal, we can say the original or the standard. Yes? So the normal Harfun Jar that we discussed before. Number 2 is the Shabihun bi-Zaid. They're not exactly Zaid, they're similar to Zaid. What does Zaid mean? We'll discuss that later on. And the third category is those are Zaid. Have you understood the categorization? Yes? Everybody following me? Any questions regarding this? Yeah? Okay. So let's discuss Harfun Jar. What does it mean by Harfun Jar Asli? Okay. So Harfun Jar Asli, let's read the text first. Harful Jar al-Asliyu, that's Mubtada. The حرف الجر الأصلي ما يفيد معنى خاصا is that which a father يفيد gives. So باب إفعال which gives the benefit. It says gives. معنى خاصا. You can say here a particular. It gives a particular or a unique. It gives a unique or a particular meaning. So ما يفيد معنى خاصا, that which gives a particular or unique meaning. ويكون مع مجروره منصوبا محلا pause معمولا لفعل أو شبه الفعل. And along with its majroor, the jar majroor joined together to become mansoob, not lafzan but mansoob how? Mahallan. And it's a ma'mool, it becomes a ma'mool of a fa'il or a shibhul fa'il. So transition once again. The harful jar al-asli, that's mubtada, is ma mawsula, is that which gives the meaning, gives a meaning. What kind of meaning? A unique, a particular meaning. And yakunu, the harfun jar, along with its majroor, ma'a majroorihi, along with its majroor, it makes it what? It becomes mansoob. It has a mansoob start. It becomes a maf'ul bihi, maf'ul lahu, maf'ul li ajlihi, maf'ul lahu, maf'ul ma'hu, one of the 5 maf'uls. And obviously, but because it's a jar majroor, the harfun jar is mabni. So you don't see the i'rab. The i'rab is what? Not lafzi, but what is the i'rab going to be? Mahalli. And what is it mansoob of? It becomes the mansoob of a fa'il, it becomes a ma'mool of a fa'il or a shibul fa'il. Let's give an example here. For example, أقام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بالمدينة. What's the harfun jar in here? Where's the harfun jar in this sentence? The ba. The ba is the harfun jar, correct. Now, what meaning does this ba give? If we say this, أقام رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بالمدينة, what meaning is this ba giving? What do you understand from this? How do you translate this? أقام يقيم, to stay, to reside. What does this mean here? Anybody? So this ba here means in or at. So what kind of meaning is it giving? The ba. What kind of mansoob thought is it going to be? And somebody else? Maf'ul fihi. Good. So now, this ba is given an independent, it has a unique meaning. It has a meaning of what? Space. Location. So, harfun jar asli, yufidu ma'nan khasan. It has a special meaning. It doesn't have like particular, like for example, the harfun jar za'id only has one meaning. Harfu sila, ta'keed. That's it. It doesn't have any other meaning. It doesn't have a unique meaning. Just one meaning. You remember the harfu sila we done in Nahwa? If you haven't done it yet, we'll cover it later on. But those only have one meaning, the harfun jar za'id. Ta'keed, emphasis. These all have unique meanings. Time, place, companionship, location, reason, maf'ul bihi meaning. They all have unique meaning. So the first thing we mentioned here is what? Ma yufidu ma'nan khasan. What does it do? It gives a unique meaning. Does everybody understand the first part of the definition? So yufidu ma'nan khasan. It has its own individual, unique, specific, particular meaning. Understood? Is that clear? Yes, any questions regarding that first part? The second part of the definition is what? وَيَكُونُ مَأَ مَجْرُورِهِ مَنْسُوبًا مَحَلًّا. Now this harfun jar, and its majroor, what slot do they take? What slot do they take? The slot of the maf'ul fi. But because ba is mabni, you don't see the nasab. So it becomes mansoob. But how is a mansoob? Is it lafdhan or mahallan? Is it assumed or is it visible, the mansoob alama? It's mahal. So it's mansoobun and mahallan. So that means we have any of the mansoob slots. And ma'moolan li fa'lin aw shibhil fa'li. And this becomes the ma'mool. What is governing bil Madina? What's the amil of bil Madina? Who can tell me? Anybody? Aqama is the amil. This is the amil. This is the fa'il. Yes? Are you following? Do you understand? Yes? Yes. So aqama is an amil and is governing the bil madina. It's making the bil madina the jar majroor. It's making it mahallan mansoob, becomes the maf'ul fi of the aqama. Understood? Okay. Let me give you another example here. But this, okay. Yabki as-sulaha'u min khashyati Allah ta'ala. Baka yabki means what? To cry. Sulaha means the righteous, the pious. Now, where's the harfun jar in here? This is a harfun. This is a harfun jar. Yes? Jar. Min khashyatillah. What meaning is this giving? Yabki sulaha'u min khashyatillah. How do you translate this? Yes. So this min khashyatillah is a maf'ul lahu. It's showing the reason why. What's the cause of the crime? Min khashyatillah. So now this jar has this, what does it say? Yufidu ma'nan khasan. What's its own individual meaning? Reason, cause. So yufidu ma'nan khasan. Wa yakunu ma'a majrurihi mansuban mahallan. Along with its majroor, the jar, min and khashyatillah, that becomes what? Mansubun. It is mansoob. But because it's mabni, you can't see it, so it says mahallan. And what slot is it taking? Reason. So maf'ulun lahu. And becomes what? Ma'mulan li fa'lin aw shibhil fa'l. What's the amil of what's the amil of min khashyatillah? Correct. This becomes the amil. So this is what we call here the harfun jar al-asli. So the harfun jar al-asli is the standard harfun jar that comes normally majority of the times. So this is called the harfun jar asli, the standard. Is that this harfun jar and the majroor become a mansoob slot. It becomes one of the mansoob slots. Maf'ul bihi, maf'ul lahu, maf'ul fi, maf'ul ma'ahu, maf'ul mutlaq, tamyiz or the hal. And even a bit more we'll go into later on. And it becomes the ma'mul of a fa'l or a shibul fa'l. And that's how we understand the harfun jar asli. Now, it's nothing new to learn because all the ones that you've done so far, or majority of the ones that you've done so far, maybe if you have done a few different in muntakhabat, one or two here and there, but majority of them were harfun jar asli. So I'm just explaining to you what you already know, what you've already been doing all this time. But I've just defined it to you in a way that all the points are very clear so that when we do the next type of harfun jar, the shabihum bizaid and the zaid, you will understand. Some of them will not have a ma'nan khasan. Some of them don't become ma'mul of a fa'il or shibhul fa'il. So then you will have to understand, okay, these are different in that scenario. But the harfun jar al-asli is this. Understood? Yes? So let's stop here today, inshallah. Any questions from anybody before we finish off? So, I mean, I don't know if it's come before. It has been added to it's called a shibhul fa'il is basically any noun. So let me give you an example here. So a shibhul fa'il is basically any noun that has a verbal meaning, like an ismul fa'il, an ismul maf'ul, or a masdar. So for example, if I say here, let me give an example. I say here, ma ana raghibun an sunnati rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Okay, raghiba yarghabu has two opposite meanings depending on the harfun jar. If raghiba comes with fi, it means to be inclined to something. Raghiba an, to be disinclined away from something. So, ma ana raghibun, ma is the mushabbah bilays. I am not disinclined from the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So in this example, the an sunnati Rasulillah, what's that becoming ma'mul of? Jihu. The one who asked the question? What's this becoming the ma'mul of? Raghib. This is the maf'ulun bihi of the raghib. I am not disinclined. So this is a shibhul fa'il. What does shibhul fa'il mean? It's an ism, but this ism has properties of a verb. It has a meaning of action in it. So this becomes the maf'ul bi. This is the ma'mul of raghib, which is the shibhul fa'il. Do you understand? So when we do an ismul amil, you would have recalled from as-sughra that we had the asma'un ta'malu amal al-fa'il. Remember that one? The masdar, the mushtaqat. So those are the ones that are called shibhul fi'l. Understood? Okay then, we stop here inshallah. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.